Welcome to the remains of Cambusnethan Priory, which is located in North Lanarkshire in Scotland. The site itself is very still and quiet, a stillness that has settled here due, unfortunately, to decades of neglect. Set within what was once a grand estate, the Priory stands today as a reminder of a very different time in Scotland's history. Despite its name, Cambusnethan Priory was never actually a religious priory. It was built around 1820 by architect James Gillespie Graham, and the name comes from the building's design, which is Gothic Revival. The Gothic influence is immediately visible in the structure's pointed arches, tall windows, and decorative stonework. The building is 2 and 3 stories high and has turrets at each corner. During its prime, the house was ornately decorated and had a large number of architectural details. The intention was to evoke the romance of medieval ecclesiastical buildings, even though it was a private residence. The building was positioned to take advantage of its surroundings. The estate once included landscaped grounds, gardens, and sweeping views over the River Clyde Valley. The site itself has centuries of history, although some of the evidence for its ownership is verbal rather than written. The records at Kelso Abbey suggest that William Phanemount, who was a Flemish nobleman who served as Lord of the Manor of Cambusnethan, granted the Church of Cambusnethan to the abbey before 1159. There's no documentation proving that there was a church there at the time, but it seems reasonable for there to have been one for such a large area. A few decades later, Ranulph de Clare, an Anglo-Norman noble, owned the site, and he also confirmed the tithes to Kelso Abbey. He gave the monks right of access to his mill, and in exchange he was allowed to build a private chapel within the area. The chances are that this building was an earth and timber castle. After the Wars of Independence, Robert the Bruce gave Cambusnethan to Sir Robert de Baird, and he built Baird Tower there. Baird subsequently forfeited the land during the reign of David II, Robert the Bruce's son. This is because he had supported the campaign of Edward Balliol to take the Scottish crown. The land was then granted to Sir John Edmonstone and then passed to the Stuarts of Darnley, who owned a number of estates in Scotland. They then provided the land as a dowry on the marriage of a daughter of the Somerville family of Carnwath, another family with significant lands in the late 14th century. The inside footage reveals what remains of the Priory's interior. Though time has taken its toll, there's still a sense of the scale and elegance that once existed here. High ceilings, large window openings, and the layout of the rooms suggests a building designed for family life and entertaining guests. Back to the history of the site. Cambusnethan was subsequently given to one of the Somerville sons, who is said to have built a 2-storey house that was 100 feet long. It apparently was quite grand, with 5 vaulted rooms on the ground floor and a round stair tower. The land was then lost by the Somerville family due to ongoing power struggles around the throne, and it was given to Sir James Hamilton, a Scottish nobleman and architect. Hamilton is said to have extended the building on site even further, with 24 rooms over 3 stories. In 1539, the barony restored to the Somerville family. In the 17th century, the land was sold to prominent landowner Sir John Harper, who demolished the old building and built a new manor house on the site. When Harper died, the land was bought by Sir John Lockhart, but the house burned down in 1810. There doesn't seem to be a record of the cause of the fire, but it consumed the building entirely. According to some records, people from the surrounding community helped to bring the fire under control eventually and were given oatmeal and money for their efforts. It was at this point that the land came into the ownership of the Lockhart family of Castle Hill, and the current building, Cambusnethan Priory, was commissioned and built. The family crest can still be seen in a carving above the main entrance. The crest represents a casket, heart and lock, and comes from the story that the ancestors of the Lockhart family carried Robert the Bruce's heart back from the Holy Land. In the 20th century, the house was taken over by Sir John Craig, who had made his fortune in the steel industry. When he died in the late 1950s, a buyer proved difficult to find, but it was eventually bought by Ron Wilson in the 1960s. He used the building as a venue for mock medieval banquets in the 1970s. The priory then changed hands to William Welsh in the 1980s, but was closed around 1984. Unfortunately, it was very badly damaged by fire in the 1980s, leaving only the shell of the building. Cambusnethan's story then has been one of gradual decline. Without regular maintenance, the building deteriorated. Roof sections collapsed, floors weakened, and exposure to the elements accelerated the decline. The priory of today is the result of years of weathering and neglect, combined with the natural ageing of the building's materials. The textures tell their own story. Crumbling plaster, exposed stone, and scattered debris mark the passage of time, and the graffiti emphasises the building's abandonment. The recent story of Cambusnethan Priory is a great shame, as there are very few remaining early 19th century mansions in Scotland. A lot of them were demolished in the 1950s and 60s. The reason for these demolitions included damage caused by the military requisitioning mansions during World War II, very high maintenance costs, and a lack of laws in place at the time to protect historic buildings. Still, there is a quiet beauty in the building's state of decay. The priory has become what might be described as a romantic ruin, where the loss of its original purpose has given way to a different kind of presence. It no longer serves as a home or place of business, but is an historical landmark. The site still attracts interest from historians, photographers, and urban explorers, due to the combination of architectural detail and the reclaiming of the building by nature. Plants have taken root where there should be floors, and the boundaries between indoors and outdoors are gradually disappearing. For now, Cambusnethan Priory remains in a fragile state. The structure is unstable in parts, and there are questions around any attempts to restore it, or to make the building safe. The site's origins lay in wealth and power, but it now stands in ruins. However, the priory may be weathered, worn and incomplete, but it's still undeniably striking. Thank you for watching this video. A special thanks to Graham at Friends of Cambusnethan Priory for the use of the historic photos. There's a link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share.